After 3 long months, she's back. Hanna, my favourite thing. Although, Linus Torvalds did invent the Linux kernel, and this laptop is using a Linux-based OS. Hanna, my second favourite thing. I don't know any others, but they're both great.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he just called me a laundry woman.
But a glamorous laundry woman.
Yeah, right. Too late now.
That's what I was thinking of. I was wondering what you looked like. That was it.
It's like, did you ever see Last of the Summer Wine, Jonathan? When they did the early version, like First of the Summer Wine.
No.
Right. Anyhow, enough of that. Enough of this stuff. Right. So so I don't forget about it, and I do not want to forget about this. We can go to the back of the book where it talks about tandem use of SE and NI, because this is something that obviously that they have in socionics. They call it the dual functions. Linda Behrens calls it the tandem functions. And for all the people out there who think, oh, Linda Behrens, all she does is adapt David Kersey's work. But no, she does that. She does all the proper respect to David Kersey, but she also innovated with the functions. And Linda Behrens is now in her 70s, so she's been doing this for, I think, over 20 years. She's been doing the function stuff. So, because like Dario will cite bits in this book where he's got these ideas from Linda Behrens. And in future, we will have a little bit of a look at. There's also something you both might like. In the 2 chapters towards the end, there's a bit on. There's a bit that hints at intertype relations, called "Improve Your Communication Skills." So that'll be interesting to look at first, right? Because that's their thoughts about talking with your dual. And I've come to the conclusion that duality is something that's better when both people are mature.
Oh yeah.
Like especially if it's like it's like if both people are over 30, they're more mature, then you can sort of see how they're different sides of the same coin. So for instance, I would say with Hanna, you can see, although I think you would probably say the TE was there all along.
Yeah, I suppose.
Right, anyway, so
When I'm in a good.
Because we don't want to forget about this, we've got so we've got Dario on page 159. We've got Dario talking about extroverted sensing with NI.
Wait, sorry, what was the page?
159.
Okay.
Well, have you seen he's got a new book out?
I have it on PDF.
Oh, I haven't bought it yet. I want to read the other. I want to study the other one completely.
Well, I think it's just. I don't think it's a complete book. I think it's only 50 pages or something.
Yeah. Dario has accentuated business logic. He releases a lot of these books for Linda Behrens that are 50 pages each.
Yeah.
And if they were all put together in one book, whether it might be like $100 or something.
Yeah, this one's about his neuroscience results in colour.
Yeah.
Reading colour.
Yeah.
Not about getting it.
So it's about $15 for 50 pages.
Yeah, 15 pages.
But quality pages. Quality pages. And that is the point.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get his book. I mean, I've got all these books to get through. I mean, plus if they start piling up anymore, I won't be able to see the names. Like this, that's at its limit. No more books can go on there, else it will cut off Enneagram. So, for instance, if I put this one there, it cuts it off. So that one can't go on there. That's got to go in a different pile. Right. So Hanna, what do you think of that extroverted sensing paragraph?
Oh, wait, the first one. Wait.
Yeah, I'll give you some time to assimilate it.
Yeah, well, yes, this tandem use, this remind me of my favorite typology. One of my favorite is this cognitive type, and they always talk about these loops or these, with both perceiving functions and then with judging functions. So this is quite a familiar concept to me. is to think about them in tandem.
Oh, that reminds me. That reminds me. When I was talking about that does remind me. When I was one of the things when I was looking at the cognitive, and I talked to Jonathan a little bit about this, the cognitive basis of the Kersey temperaments. There's just a tiny digression, folks, where I had a look that Carl Jung only actually wrote about the perceiving functions suppressing each other, not about the judging functions in each other. Not at least not directly, anyhow. Because he was saying things like, in order for extroverted intuition to work, you have to suppress extroverted sensing. And that makes sense. And then when you look at Dario's work, extroverted sensing is like being totally in the context, in the present moment. And NE is tangenting and going on to other contexts. So this is why we NPs probably not the best to do Lewis Hamilton's job of being a racing driver. I got that. I actually got that analogy from someone else. I won't mention his name, but that's not an original. I got that from somebody else. I thought it was a very good analogy. And just to carry on in sport, as soon as anyone in sport, and I suppose in dance or anything to do with the body like that, as soon as they start thinking about how they're doing it, like say they they develop a technical fault, as soon as they start thinking about it, then they can't do it. The technique has to become second nature, and then they forget about the technique and then just do it, react instinctively, and so Hanna, you know the way that that paragraph's described. Do you get the impression that Dario might be fantasizing a bit about SE?
Well, he said that he likes ISFP, so I don't know. maybe he is. I don't know. Has he said it? I mean, has he talked about it, or are you?
I know, but
are you reading in between the lines?
Well, it fits a trend because he talks about SE being aspirational, and he has talked about loving doing extroverted sensing things like diving, scuba diving, when he was in Queensland, Australia, and I'd like seeing other things that he is suggestive for SE, and it's just that he like turns in a little bit in the romance styles, where I can imagine an INFP woman wouldn't like a guy to be that forceful and go, "Come here, darling, dance with me."
Yeah.
To get the pepper spray out.
Yeah.
Whereas INFJ might like that kind of thing.
I'd be really shy. My shyness would win.
Yeah.
That would make you blush, wouldn't it, Jonathan?
Make me blush, yes.
But you'd secretly like it. Because I've been watching an episode of Blake 7, which is like totally, just a tiny digression again, in fact, I'm not going to do a massive one, where the actress...
Promises.
The actress is NFJ, she's playing an INTJ, because the actress had really short hair. I mean, like, really, really short hair. Shorter than Jonathan's. And not quite as short as mine, but shorter than Jonathan's. And the way the character was written, and she read it in the script, and says, "I'm not going to dress like this. This makes me look too butch," in her words. And so she dressed in a very glamorous way. So she was playing an INTJ mastermind in like ball gowns and things in a very feminine way. So it had this nice dichotomy between the type of the actress and then the type of the character that she was playing, and sort of the two came together. And in this episode called Harvest the Kairos with Jarvik, in the first scene, Jarvik, he comes in and like, he grabs her, kisses her, like shows how capable he is, and then she says something like, "I actually have to grab of it. I'll just show you it because I want to get and then I'll get back on track." But because I just think this episode is emblematic of crazy exaggerated duality, on like a comedic level, where you see and Jacqueline Pearce herself, I believe, is an NFJ, because she's talked about, she's a bit like a a post-feminist. I think the early feminists were all NFPs. But the post-feminists might be the NFJs.
Mm. Yeah.
Now, by post-feminist folks, I don't mean anti-feminists. I mean the ones who are still feminist.
Like
And it's
third wave. Do you
probably
mean third
called as a
wave?
broad church these days. So this is her talking about, and this is related to NI, because NI types have the victim romance style.
Mm.
I should click on my square so the audience can see. We'll get back on track. And then she says this bit to Jarvik. There is the question of that degrading and primitive act to which I was subjected in the control room. She then turns around and says, I should like you to do it again. And so that's how I imagine.
Mm.
Well, I'm slightly biased because my romance style is like infantile caregiver. This is how I see the flipping SFPs and NFJs. So I'm slightly biased that I see them in this weird way of these. And then like here, then her herself, Jacqueline Pierce.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking. Well, my first boyfriend was definitely SE lead, and he was like I had no saying in when he just I just realized. I think I've told this before, but
You never told me about these kind of activities that you never had any choice. Whoa, tell on.
Yeah, I mean, I just realized one day that I'm his girlfriend. It just happened. He was so active, and I had like no say at all.
It's a bit like, well, if you see the episode Harvest of Kairos, you don't need to know anything else about Blake 7, but you get straight into the story of the duality, and it really concentrates on, like, Jarvik is either ESTP or ESFP, and he even has scenes where he talks about Serverland, that she doesn't have any feelings, all she does is let the computers do her thinking for her. So it's like, I'm thinking, oh, is this ESFP? And it's like, really, the theme of duality. And the writer, though, has such a reputation for being sexist that, in like other stories, but in this sort of story, it fits. It fits the romance styles. But I can imagine NFP women thinking it is because of the clash of romance styles. So anyhow, so that's relevant to what Dario put. Oh yeah, and she also had some psychiatric problems, Jacqueline Pierce. A wonderful actress, really wonderful. Because what she would do is she got trained in the British system of theatrical, so like speaking proper, and she also learnt the American system of like from the inside out, and she would combine the techniques. So she could like cry really convincingly one moment and be like really real, then the next be like really camp, and like saying in one of the scenes with Jarvik goes, "Won't you obey me?" And she holds out her arms for 10 seconds. So it's fantastic. Anyway, I digress. So you've read that, extroverted sensing. You've not got much to say on that. Okay. If you go to page 160 on introverted intuiting with SE, we've sort of done the same thing, but the other way around with a different emphasis. Just about got away. Also, it's no.
I don't know. I don't relate to this at all.
Well, that's good. That's good. That throws that extra evidence you're not an NJ. So let's compare, because I think both of you are NFs. How dare you, Ben? How dare you question my NF? That's Jonathan's probably thinking. But I personally think that Hannah's FINX and INFP. And so, what do you think of that section, Jonathan? So just going to compare the two.
Seems pretty normal for me. Something I do all the time. So.
But do you, Jonathan, do you have this? This sounds so like very long term, like strategic thinking in a way. So do you consider yourself to have this patience and long
Oh,
term
yeah.
thinking?
Well, I don't have any patience, but I do have long-term thinking. Yes, I do think quite far. That I kind of see how things are likely to go, or what how likely to go. But the problem is, if you're living in the future all the time, you're not living in the moment. So
Yes,
you know,
and that is the key to it. It's the connection between the future and now. And so Dario would say, okay, so it's like, and EJ&D's talked about this, like in between him going mental recently and then taking most of his videos down, and then like people having mirrors of this site. But he did talk about things where you have somebody who can act in the moment, and they can do everything that's necessary if you like give them the vision. So if you have them teamed up with someone who can give them that vision, they have the energy, and they have the energy. So for instance, if you had an ESTP with Jonathan, they have all this energy, and they would energize Jonathan as well, and he would give them the vision, and if they sort of merge together and become a sort of power couple, I imagine.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that's interesting because I can. Well, I like to plan, and I like to, I like to create plans for projects, but it's very short term. Like I enjoy doing it in the moment, but then I get bored, and I don't want to finish. It's like more like sporadic in a way. I don't. I'm very. Well, I just get easily bored with tasks. So long-term projects don't suit me at all.
see, I don't actually plan. I just envision. I envision things, but I don't actually. I'm very bad when it actually comes to working out the details and actually doing the thing. That sort of thing is just more constantly thinking about it, though, or another time, another place, or looking at something and seeing how it's likely to turn out. That's what that's what I'm doing all the time, really.
My advice to myself and to NJ is to say, patience can be a bad thing. You can be in too patient, too patient.
Mm-hmm.
Where you don't, where you think, oh, I'm just being patient. No, you're procrastinating. You're just sitting around, you're waiting for it to happen. Then you don't have to do anything. Oh no, I'm just being patient. No, you're being inactive.
Hmm.
And that's probably how an SP would see it. It's like, just do it.
Shia LaBeouf. Did you see those Shia LaBeouf videos?
No.
He he just made videos where he was just walking around saying, "Just do it!" over and over and over again.
Right, that's one of those extra Scottish moments. All right.
He didn't say it in a Scottish accent.
No. Anyway, he's good in Transformers, folks. Anyway, so now, okay, now. What?
Is he really though? He's okay.
I thought it was funny. There were some good lines in there. Why are you sweating? I'm a teenager. There's some very good, I love the parents are genius. Wonderful performance by his parents. Anyhow, we're talking about that. Otherwise, in 40 minutes, we'll be doing what you did last time. Where we'll go, we're not even at the bottom of the first page. Right. So,
I do
Transformers
not like that.
No, you're more Scottish than that. You went for some reason you went super Scottish. You do when you go into an emphasis.
Okay.
So by going through this, we can see how much Hanna values this thing.
So can you say what's the page?
Oh, sorry, it is page 71.
71.
Oh, are you looking at my scans?
No. Should I?
Yes, I think you should. Yes, because it will be easier for you to get through. Because generally, I'll be talking about things that I've highlighted.
Mm-hmm. Let's see how. I'm just checking how well I can see. Okay.
Okay, since I've done these few pages twice, I'm going to be I'll still be here, but I'll be doing other stuff on mute.
Yeah, that is perfectly fine, Jonathan, because we do have a time limit, and I would. Yes, he's done it twice. So, have you found it, Hannah? It's the first slide.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we've got the bottom of the. So, what do you think of the cartoon where he says, when he's asked, "What is
Yeah.
enlightenment?" You already know. What are your sentiments towards that?
Well, kind of like not so positive. I mean, that's like a cliche, you know. If I went there and asked this, and I was told this, I would just, just leave.
Whereas Jonathan's reaction was, "Oh, that's great," and he said, "An extra point for Dario." I think when he said he did a joke, "I always know the answer." That's exactly right. So he did a good joke when that bit. But I really want to like point out the
Not a joke.
differences.
That was not a joke. I do know the answer.
It might not be the right answer though.
Yeah.
Right.
It sounds too like spiritual, too guru-like, and I'm just not into that kind of.
Yeah. Like I said, oh, you wouldn't say 2NF because you are an NF, but you would say 2NI. Two
Yeah.
NI nonsense. It's just like Jonathan said, I'm putting an end to this NE nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So then we got at the bottom, benefits for self-leadership, and then we can sort of see how much you value these things. Like, I mean, do you believe with this envisioning an energizing future?
Well, I do tend to build up scenarios of what I want to do, like professionally in future, or what kind of life I would like to lead, or something like that. But it's not static. Like I have these. I used when I was younger, like in my 20s. I used to have this file, like this actual file, where I wrote all my dreams that I could, and that I had like during one day I could have 10 different possible scenarios for what I want to do, what I want to study, especially what I want to study at that point. And so I don't have only one. I can envision those, but it's never just one possibility. There has to be like several possibilities.
With that, I mean, straight away that, and as you know yourself, that lends more towards NE than NI.
Oh yeah. Sure.
As you know yourself. And then like this second one, what do you think of that line? And do you believe it's possible?
Have greater awareness of your own and others' inner potential. I don't know. I'm not aware of my own potential, inner potential. I do tend to read other people, trying to, understand them better. But I'm not sure I'm looking for potential specifically. It's more about understanding.
I think I may have mentioned this with Crystal, because I had a really good hangout with Crystal, because she was asking me the sort of questions that were like little tricky questions, and I was like coming up with new stuff. So she's sort of coming up with new stuff on the fly. And we were sort of comparing an INFJ counsellor, so an IFX counsellor and an FINX counsellor, how they're different, and and potential. So, for instance, an NFP or an NP will see a property in someone and say maybe something like, "Oh, they're good at this." So it's like Linda Bound's work with INTP is they're good at, if someone's competent at something, they'll go, "Oh, they'll do well with this person. They'll go well with them." Or they'll make a connection.
Oh, yes.
So connections with, "Oh, this person will go well with this person. Oh, this person, they're interested in this. I can tell them this thing."
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
Now, sometimes though, certain types can use that as their creative function. So ENFJ can do that as well. So I always, because that the creative function can monkey around with the quadrivalues. So for instance, ESFP can have a lot of FE. Not be a serious type. They can be very merry, and because they're FE creative, just like ENFP can be very merry.
Mm.
I mean, they're probably the least serious of the types, but it depends on the mode that they're in. So when it says here, aged awareness of one other's inner potential, so they can say, hey, they could do this. So that's the NE kind of potential.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you'd agree with that. But then now maybe the NI kind of potential is, I could see how this person could change.
Oh.
Because the NI is, as you know, intuition of time. It's about change and development and transformation. And sometimes, and as you know, the NFJs probably think they can change someone. They think they can change the SPs. They think they can civilize them. Oh dear, bias. They think that, but it becomes a failed project sometimes.
Mm. Yeah.
So I think they both see potential, but sort of operate in different ways depending on their preference. Do you think that makes sense?
Oh yeah, it does. Yes.
Do you want to say anything about it?
No, well, we can talk when we, or if we make an video at some point.
Oh, we'll be doing NA. Oh, we'll be doing NA at some point. I've actually not read that chapter yet because I thought, well, I don't really need to read it yet. I'll read the functions I'm not so hot at first. I did NI first because I'm interested, and then I did SI and SE. I got 1 out of 16 for SE. I don't know what you got for SE when you went through this book.
I don't remember. Quite low, I assume. Quite low.
Yeah, but also, like, when you read the SE chapter, you will really find out whether you value SE or not.
Okay.
Because I was like going through it, and I was thinking, I don't want to be better at this. This is stupid.
Yeah.
Because it's all about acting in the right. So there we go. Right, Dario. Dario is hot for this function. He's describing things to it, like he's put here. Come up with innovative. I mean, it's just like you get the bias with the MPs, like Alshra, and it's like innovation is all to do with NE, and then you got Dario and NJ saying innovation is to do with NI. They put come up with innovative ideas that no one has thought of before.
Mm-hmm.
And then can you
Well,
see
I don't care. Well, yeah, but I don't care if if something is if no one has never thought about something. That's not what I like look for to be a pioneer in a way. I just want if I can have a cause, something that I value or believe in, and I want to change, have a change in that. But then I don't care if it's someone else's idea that I use in creating that change. I don't care if it's. I don't have to be the first one to think about something or
Are you saying that you might be a secret plagiarist?
A secret. Secret what?
Plagiarist, someone who might nick somebody else's ideas. Oh.
Might be, but I always put my sources up, so.
Oh, very good.
That's science. Yeah.
So, interesting.
Yeah.
That could be TE valuing.
Yeah, and it's also it's just being a realist, because if you study like philosophy or history of ideas or whatever, there rarely are any new ideas. Something it usually is an old idea that has a renaissance. So it
goes to these revolutions where the old thing starts coming back. Then you get like skepticism, romanticism, postmodernism.
Yeah. So I would be quite modest in thinking, or humble in thinking that whether I have. I know it's more, to me it's more about finding patterns that I enjoy. I enjoy seeing patterns, like same things in different places, or I enjoy creating weird connections. That's what I enjoy doing.
And you even did, I think your course was comparative theology, was it?
Comparative religion, yeah.
So
comparative religion, yes.
Comparative, that you got your NE right there.
Yeah.
Going across contexts.
Yeah. That's what I like. That's what I enjoy.
And of course, the role function can be quite strong because, especially, and this is what I was going back to before when I said about the perceiving functions suppressing each other, and I don't think it happens so much because thinking and feeling I do not see as opposites. What are opposites though is sensitive versus insensitive. Now usually, and that's how Kretschmer had it for the cyclothymes. He had like he had the cold pole for like the extreme NTs, and then he had this oversensitive pole for the extreme NFs. So that's opposite, isn't it? Sensitive versus insensitive. But thinking and feeling are not necessarily opposites. I mean, look at the subject you did. You studied philosophy. That's full of thinking and feeling. Ethics is both. Philosophy is both. They can go together.
Yes, yes.
So to that extent, that means that for those people that have a judging function first, they can have a very strong role function because it's not necessarily an opposite.
Yeah.
Because I think the perceiving functions are more of an opposite. So, for instance, when you were doing your degrees, you'll be using quite a bit of TI.
Oh yeah.
And it's only in certain situations, I imagine, where you would feel a clash.
Yeah, well, it's in those situations. When I got frustrated with the studies, it was the moments when I saw that TI was taking over my goals. Like if I had some pragmatic goals, like I want to change how people think about, for example, value of death or whatever, then the actual material that I was reading was very TI heavy, like all about arguments and logic and especially metaphysics and these thought experiments, and it went very deep into that kind of stuff, very TI stuff. And then I got frustrated because I felt I lost my light, I lost my actual goal into that kind of nitpicking.
But that's what I think. I think WSS it's just metaphysical socionics. I mean, they talk about the functions as if they're axioms. They're not axioms, they're hypothetical functions, which is why each school of socionics has slightly different definitions of the functions.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've been typed... I think the most common type that I've gotten in socionics circles is ESI. So FISE is what I'm told most.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
But any kind of INFP that has... See, I think it's... You are more sure of your principles because you've been through this process of studying, and you've almost sort of like, it's like you're probably thinking, hey, I've thought about this, folks, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also that I'm old. I'm old. I'm at the age when even Jung thought that we start to this individuation process, around my age and your age. So we're in the age of transforming ourselves in some way anyway. So I think our types can be a bit more blurred, or typing can be a bit difficult at this age. Also, I have some traumatic background, so there are some stuff that that affect my typing. And my Enneagram is 6, so it's
We won't talk about that. We'll talk about the positives. So, for instance, your husband is an STJ. Do you think his thought process has developed your TE?
Possibly. Well, because he's extremely calm, like most SLIs and ISTJs that I know are, and very patient. So he's good at, and he doesn't mind. He doesn't mind using TE because it's like it's what he enjoys. So it's not a burden to him to use it. So it's been easy for me to see that someone can accomplish things and does it very easily and naturally. So yeah, I think it has made it somehow relaxing to me. I don't know. I just enjoy it a lot.
Yeah. Do you ever think they're saying something like "You're beautiful" when you're following instructions, dear?
But I think I've always liked to follow instructions though. I have this inner. I don't know. I've never been very creative with recipes or stuff like that. No, if I buy something from IKEA, then I will follow the instructions and still make mistakes. But anyway.
Even though it's Swedish, you will say, even though I follow the instructions.
Swedish, yes.
I can imagine some SPs in Finland that will go, no, I'm doing it my way, I'm not telling them.
Yeah, and they will thoroughly regret not following the instructions.
Or they might go, some Swede's written this, I'm going to do it my own way.
Yeah. But I do enjoy tea egos.
Right, so basically seeing that, I'm not leading you too much, because sometimes I have a tendency to lead. That's why really experiments should be double-blind, because people do lead people.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I mean, people have seen in other videos that you value the delta functions.
And I like delta people usually.
For me, that is
certain alphas and certain betas. But mostly delta. Yeah.
For me, that's the validity of the quadras, is the intertype relations within them. Right. And then we've got this bit here, transform how you think about life.
Well, this is interesting because I have transformed how I think about life. During my studies in theology, I did change my worldview quite a bit. Or I think it was easier for me to make some changes in my thinking. So I think I have transformed, but it's not. I don't know if I value. Well, I think this one. Do
you want to tell us
how?
Do you want to tell us how you've changed your?
Yeah. When I went to study theology, I was 22. Always. Yeah, I was 22 when I started. No, 21. I was 21 when I started studying theology. And at first, I even thought maybe I can become a priest or a pastor or whatever. Because I had I have never felt a strong relation to any religious worldview. But then I thought, maybe it's because the job maybe I would like to work in that kind of, to work with people and to help, like in a hospital or whatever. But then the more I studied, the more I realized that no way, I have no, vocation. I just don't relate at all to these principles and beliefs and like nothing, rituals, nothing. I have never felt any connection to any public expression of spirituality. It's a very private thing to me, and like I've said in other videos, I have never felt, strongly about spirituality in the first place. So I don't feel I have this spiritual needs so much. So because I still belonged into the Lutheran church. So then after a year or so I how do you say? I left the church. So I became officially a pagan.
Ooh, very NF. Extra NF points there.
Yeah, and then after that, I have studied lots and lots of different kinds of worldviews and especially these like atheism, but or let's say naturalism. I prefer the term naturalism. So I have different sorts of humanisms and feminism and political views. So
a lot of atheists need to get a grip, and in terms of like becoming better marketers for their point of view rather than coming across as obnoxious. Because
but there are many good atheists. They are just not popular because those most obnoxious ones are the ones that are
that's the thing.
Yeah, but I have studied, I have read lots and lots about this stuff. And of course, philosophy. I found my favorite philosophers like Schopenhauer. No, Jonathan. I'm reading what he wrote.
Something about Angry Birds, I think.
Yeah. Woohoo! Yeah, but I have spent most of my adult years contemplating about my worldviews and beliefs. So.
Well, what we could talk briefly about, because this is relevant, and as you've learnt about archetypes,
Mm.
do you think that you were connecting with these archetypes as you were going through studying these religions, these archetypal images?
Oh yeah. We have to remember that I was very much into astrology when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, because there I didn't know any other typology. And those are also archetypes, those zodiac signs, even though they are not like real, but they are archetypes. They represent archetypes.
Your sound went a little bit weird when you said something like in your 20s, and then I heard teacher.
As a teenager, sorry, as a
Oh,
teenager,
right.
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Yes, as a teenager and in my 20s. So, because I didn't know any other typology, so I used those archetypes a lot. Also, this Greek mythology, Greek gods and goddesses, those I use a lot, like to help explore my own. Then Enneagram, because Enneagram types are also very archetypal. But of course, I have always read a lot of fairy tales, like old fairy tales from different cultures and specifically Finnish fairy tales, and identified.
I've got a book. This book is called The Greek Myths by the great Robert Graves.
Mm-hmm.
He was a proper historian and also a very good writer. He wrote I, Claudius. I don't know if you've seen that, Hanna.
No.
And what he did here was he put all the Greek myths together in one sort of like massive novel. And he's got the variations in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's 782 pages. And also there's a similar one like this for the Norse myths.
Ah, interesting.
So does the dual, the sort of the flexible gender of Woden and Odin interest you? Like sometimes he appears as a woman, sometimes he appears as a man.
No, I don't. I haven't. It's a shame, but I don't know these myths so well. So mostly.
So maybe there's a book there you could maybe get off Amazon. It's like I'll get the Norse ones after I've read this one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Norse myths one where they've done a similar thing where they put it all together in one massive novel.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but yeah, Robert Graves, I, Claudius. I recommend I, Claudius.
Mm-hmm.
So these, what I was particularly thinking was with these archetypes, that did you get certain images appear to you in your dreams or anything? Or
Yeah, I had some. Well, when I was 19, I took my first tattoo. It is a sun, and the sun was a very important symbol for me for many years, ever since I was like a teenager. So I felt a strong connection to that. And yeah, I have some certain themes in my dreams that I have repeated throughout my life, specifically trains and train tracks, or how do you call them? The tracks. And those have followed me all my life. I have certain of those things, but I don't treat them in, how would I say it? Do not sound obnoxious myself, but like we chatted earlier today about these cognitive science of religion and these share symbols like across different cultures.
Yeah.
I think we have some. I think it's quite. It doesn't have to be any supernatural or anything like that, or anything like paranormal. I think it's just that our brain is it has developed in a certain way, so it's very natural that we have similar kind of patterns.
Oh yeah.
Also.
It's like across cultures.
Yeah.
You'll even have people who've never come into contact with poisonous spiders. That atavistic fear is there. So things that are programmed to find babies' faces cute.
Yeah.
These things
stuff like that.
are programmed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So it's been interesting. I've used those symbols to explore myself and trying to understand myself, and that's what I have done ever since I was preteen. I think ever since I was a child, I used all kinds of stories and symbols and reflected myself against those, and reflected other people against those. So I've always had some sort of systems or typology or some kind of archetypal system that I use as a platform where I put people and myself in, trying to understand them better.
So the approach to how you interpret these symbols, and I'm trying to get like how an NFP would interpret them versus an NFJ. Would the NFJ go, oh, this is a sign of this, that this might happen, and the NFP might be like, oh, this is interesting, all these possibilities and patterns. I was just wondering how you approached, how you interpreted these symbols.
Well, it's hard to say. I don't know. One thing, like I said before, but it might not have any relation to my cognitive type or whatever, but is that I've never been static in my thinking. So I've always looked for more and more, and trying to find these connections and finding more explanation, and then changing like you've seen me change my typing. I'm not what I think is different from many NFJs is that they are fairly sure of their type. I think more than well, okay, I know some ENFPs who are very sure of their types, and INFPs too. But for me, it has never been easy to to fix my typing. And
ENFPs, you question it. That's it. Are you sure you're an NFP? Look, my hair is green. What do you think?
Yeah, and well, interesting is that I have talking about the green hair. I shaved my head bald at some point in my 20s, and I've gone through all sorts of hair colors actually. So I have explored my identity in various ways.
Was that also something that, because we covered this a little bit when we did like the third paragraph in the Kersey idealist healer profile, was that almost like a statement?
It was partly a statement. It was partly just a very impulsive decision because I was fed up with my hair and I asked my husband, can you please shave it? But it was also some kind of statement that I needed a break from being this culturally accepted feminine, human. And it actually helped to be something. I was a bit more androgynous, I had something. I was also externally showing my insecurity, or not insecurity. It's a wrong word, but showing that I don't fit in, as easily as, or I don't want to fit in, or that I'm open, all sorts of like lifestyles or. But I don't know. I think most of all, it felt like as a break, that I had a time out from this trying to grow as a woman.
And did people treat you differently?
Yes, somewhat. Yes.
And did that make you think?
Yeah.
Human nature. Did that make you sigh a little bit about human nature?
Yeah. It was. It's quite depressing how much hair can do.
Well, it's a bit me. What about me in Hangouts? People will say, "Oh, Ben's complimenting Hanna when she has her hair down," and all these kind of things. So I'm guilty of it as well.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting, and we need moments like that. What I needed back then, and I still sometimes need that's why I still do this. But well, I haven't shaved my head for for a long time. But I changed my style. You know, I explore like this personal style. I dress how I dress, and it has a huge effect on how people treat me. What kind of clothes I wear, do I wear makeup or not, do I have glasses or on or not, or you know. But I think it's also that I change my behavior a bit depending on what kind of image I'm sort of like taking on. I've this is something I've realized lately. Well, I've always known it, but I'm thinking, well, this is a bit problematic because it doesn't show outside. People see me, but I've heard people often see me as quite, you know, quite self-confident and quite, you know, like stiff, not stiff, but as a quite strong personality, you know, that I take charge and stuff like that. But in real life, you know, in reality, I'm very adaptable. I'm a people pleaser and adaptable, and I take roles depending on what I read that I need to do. So there's some kind of contrast.
Oh, in a future hangout, we could do Linda Bones' interaction styles to see how. You see, there's a difference between Victor and like Victor thinks that a type can vary by their interactions. Like I said, so you could have a dominant version of each type, whereas Linda Bones thinks it's specific to a temperament. Are you right? Anyway, we won't go too much into that. We've got 1 hour and 15 minutes left. So if we do the assessing current development, I'll put my light on. It is. So that is page 72.
72. But I should just take your.
Yeah, if you have a look at my photos, you can actually see what I've scored as well.
Mm-hmm. I haven't taken this test, but you know, these are almost the same questions as in keys to cognition.
Well, what happened with that is when I did that, I thought those, and as folks, that website Keys to Cognition was created to promote this book. But I scored higher on this than I did on the website because I think that the questions were too NF-y.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, they were just phrased in too much of an NF way.
Yeah.
So I didn't. You know, I didn't. You know, I was honest and no, I don't think like that. I mean, I just thought they were phrased in too much of an NF way.
Well, I think I actually would score rather high in this, reading these options. I have to tell you something about this third. This experience a premonition or foresee the unexpected. Well, something just happened when I had my clinical practice. You know, as I told you, which is why I was really busy. And there was well, it was with demented people, so the people there were old and sick, and quite a few of them died during my stay.
Oh dear.
Anyway, I had yeah, and it was the first time I saw a dead person. You know, I'm 37 and it was the first time I saw, and I think it's something is wrong in our culture if we don't see death, because it happens all the time. Anyway, I had a day off. And I had a dream. Next night, I had a dream that one specific man died, and I was in a night shift, and he died during this night shift. And then I went to work I had a shift next day, and when I went in, he had died, you know, during the night shift. So, you know, this is some kind of, you know, if you, well, I don't think, I think it was just an, you know, coincidence.
Yeah.
But, you know, I could easily interpret it as some kind of premonition because I just haven't, you know.
Well, of course. Now here's Ben going into NT mode. Well, see if it happens again. Right, then you can see how random it is.
Yeah.
And then you might have another dream, and then you might go, "Oh no, I hope I'm not right again."
Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree, and that's why I said I see it as a coincidence. But you know, I could interpret it as, you know, as some kind of, if I was very naive. Maybe. And some people do interpret those kind of things as a premonition. But it was interesting anyway, I think.
And then this next bit here, feel attracted to the symbolic, archetypal, or mysterious.
Well, I feel attracted to the symbolic and archetypal, but not mysterious. Not mysterious. Yeah. And I do experience these aha realizations about.
Oh, I mean, I think everyone does that.
Yeah.
I mean that's so that at least everyone gets a 1 out of 16.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's got to have, because that's just basically how the unconscious works. Like ideas popping into people's heads.
Mm.
But I mean, people have got to have that. But yeah, I mean, others will have that more, in my opinion. Now, you will have seen amongst other NFs and amongst other people who are interested in the same thing. Do you think there's a lot of? Do you think the people that take that more seriously when it says symbolic, archetypal, mysterious?
Mm.
Have you noticed patterns in how the NFJs take it and how the NFPs take it, or specifically INFJ, INFP, in their views towards? I mean, do you think the NFJs take that stuff more seriously?
It depends on their enneagram. I think.
Ah,
Cultural.
this is something that you and Jonathan know more about than I do. I'm just sort of speculating.
Yeah, I think enneagram 4s are the most drawn to mysterious, usually. Yeah, enneagram 4s, and I'm not a 4, so.
The reason I say this based on the functions, I'm just doing now what Jack does, which is I'm sort of like going deductively, sort of thinking, well, if NE sees lots of possibilities, then maybe the NE type will go, oh, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this. Whereas the NI type, if they're only seeing one possibility and seeing it changing, they might believe it more because it's like one thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not based on any evidence. That's just deduction from a hypothesis.
And I think when I was, okay, this I can be totally wrong, but just my impression from MBTI NFJs and versus NFPs is that NFPs tend to, even though they disagree with or have strong values about something or about a certain worldview or whatever, they tend to allow other people to have their own, they understand that people have different kinds, even if they disagree with others, about their values, but still it's like they understand because they can see the possibilities like really easily, and that there can be more relativists in a way than NFJs
might be more flexible as well because they have thought about the different possibilities.
Yeah, and they can change. I think it's more common for NFPs to change their worldview or have this kind of they're open for different kinds of interpretations.
And also with the SE, the SE will make the NFJs more common. So I would direct people towards this book, folks, Interaction Styles, which is basically there's 4 interaction styles within each, just as there were 4 Galenko temperaments within each quadra, and there are 4 interaction styles within each essential motivator pattern. So within each Kersey temperament, there were 4 different interaction styles. So for instance, if you talk about the NFs, the in-charge type, ENFJ, so they're going to be initiator, so sort of like extroverted, initiator, and directive. On the opposite end of the scale, you've got INFP, that is shyer, that is responding rather than initiating, and informing. But there's little details in here where actually the INFP is outcome focused.
Mm-hmm.
So she's got these little, nuances in there where, and INTP is also behind the scenes. So maybe we get what we want, but we use cooperative methods to get what we want. How do you get these people in this hangouts, Ben? Well, there's a little bit of that going on. It's not through ordering people to be in them. but it does get to a result. So maybe there's a little bit of nuance to them. So maybe I'll recommend this book. Maybe I should read it more of it. Oh, there.
Yeah.
So, what about? Oh yeah, you mentioned for C in the because you mentioned that thing. And then here's a bit that's like super NF for me. Gain a profound unless you want to say something else about premonitions.
No.
Right, okay. Ah, you see, oh, no, I don't value that function, Ben.
Yeah.
And then we've got part 2. Gain a profound realization from a mystical state or catharsis.
Well, yeah, this is well, again, no for mystical state, but yes for catharsis. Because catharsis is about emotion. It doesn't have to be mystical. It can be a profound. You can read a book or see a movie or just have a very good therapy session or whatever, and you go through these or have a good fight with someone or whatever that arouses your emotions, and then it can be very cathartic.
Well, now you're sounding NFJ. Have a good fight with someone.
Yeah, haven't I told you I'm quite a fighter. I don't think NFJs are, better fighters.
That's interesting. That's the point, that is, because they might be more submissive. Because it's INFP are their principles, and they can be, the principles are the thing. So they will defend their principles.
Oh yeah.
And that's when they can be hardcore and defiant, because staying true to themselves, but generally they're not going to be. They're probably not going to be proactively hardcore, but they will defend.
No, but when is enough or triggered enough, they will. But I think what I usually, if I'm INFP, this is what I have noticed. If I'm not INFP, then I'm talking shit. Sorry, but I know it's all untrue. But anyway, what I have noticed is INFPs tend to be completely misunderstood as with this sentence, because when my opinion is that INFPs will. I have said this before, but I would repeat it because it's important. FI leads is specifically INFPs. They will defend their values like forcefully, and they believe in their values. But it doesn't mean that they think their values are true, like that they are objectively true. They just believe that they are the best. They are there, but it's their values that are subjectively the best, and that they want to act upon, and they can realize that other people have different values, and there is no way to discern which value is best objectively. There can be some standards by which we can evaluate what kind of morals or what kind of action would be best in certain. But INFPs will defend their own values, and they that, but it doesn't mean that they don't realize there are other worldviews and values.
Well, you see, I sort of get that from a political point of view with these sort of I can sort of tell when a college professor's like an NFP, and it's like they'll say all relativism, and then suddenly they'll say stuff about conservatives, which is like totally black and white. And it's like, and that's perfectly acceptable to me because people are contradictory, because I go along with Robert McKee. People have dimensions, which is a contradiction. You can have so you can have this cognitive dissonance in people, whereas both things can be true. They can think relativism, and then in another area think no, they're just wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is that I see that in myself, that I, rationally speaking, I can understand that something, someone can explain me that it's not so black and white, but my emotions are totally black and white. They are fierce and strong and unshakable. No one can tell me how to feel, and when I have emotions relating into my values, then it looks really bad externally, because then it looks like that I have no reason, that I'm unreasonable or I'm just unfair. But it's not that I don't understand objectively, rationally, that there are these different views. can be argued for. I just don't care about once I have fixed my values or I have some important principles, then I don't care, what other people. I only care about, living through my principles, and then I will fight.
Well, you're an advanced NF in both experience. I mean, so when you compare the NFP that's 18 and 20, and not
my husband wouldn't say I'm advanced. I can be very, very raw and primitive with some of my values, like really bad. I admit it.
If the audience wants to see a little bit of that, watch the third Kersey. Hopefully that was cathartic for you.
Yeah, in one, yes, yeah. That was easy. I mean, I was not fierce at all. I think I was controlling myself.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. I didn't push it too far. I was delicate because.
But I can be horrible. I mean, like very primitive with some values. The more I have emotions involved, the more primitive I become. But it doesn't mean, like I said, now I can talk about those and I can see them like from the out of the box. Now I can see that I'm subjective. I can see I'm unfair when I'm. But it doesn't mean that I would always act that way rationally, because I also believe in the value of emotions. So I'm not going to shut my emotions down.
I'm just, I mean, if you compare an INFP that is 20, that hasn't studied typology, that hasn't gone through philosophy, that hasn't had like another 18 years or 17 years experience, and hasn't thought about these things as much, then they're going to be less likely to think deeply. And one of the reasons you might think deeply is the Enneagram Type 6, which I think is called the questioner.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so then we've got here, push your mind to envision a solution to a problem that hasn't come up yet.
Well, yeah, if I have to, if I get paid. Well, yeah, I can sometimes. Well, that's also
that's the inferior TE. If I could get paid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, seriously, that's why. But also, I'm Enneagram 6, and they are troubleshooters and problem solvers. So
I did a video with Elena Ames Hagber. She said that name publicly, so I'll say the surname. I won't say your surname, but I'll say.
Well, you couldn't say my surname even if you wanted. So.
Good.
The pronunciation
well,
is so.
you talked about INFPs, FINX, as being the way she was with the suggestive TE. She almost described them as limousine liberals, where secretly they do want the money. But you see, that might just be her experience from the Soviet Union, where again, if you're going based on functions, this is the problem. If you see people as a bag of functions, then you'll go, oh, they've got TE, therefore they're a secret limousine liberal. So that's one of the problems with thinking deductively from things that are not axioms, but from things which are hypothetical functions. That's the problem. If you define TE just as business logic and being careful with money, then if it's too narrow a definition, like if you say SE is power sensing, and again, if you give it too narrow a definition.
Yeah, I see TE as some kind of pragmatics and.
Oh yeah, you'll like the way Dario sees it as a measuring device. It's basically I think you like empiricism, don't you?
I like what?
Empiricism.
Yeah, I'm an empiricist, definitely. Yes.
Well, there you go. That's your function then. TE, you're suggestive for the empiricism. So it's like, ooh, empiricism. I love the empiricism.
Yeah, I'm definitely empiricist. Yes.
So it's like as you go through each of these functions, you can sort of feel about, oh, you'll know which ones you value, and you'll also know which ones Dario values as well. Because, right, so, then we've got a little bit more. Then we've got synthesize a new idea that transcends various opposing points of view. Now, I'm not necessarily sure that that's NI. I think that's
No.
other functions. There's a bit of NE, a bit of TI, bit of FI, bit of lots of different things for that one.
Yeah, it sounds very like active. Or what I mean is that it very reflective. If NI, well, I don't know how Dario how he understands these functions, but wouldn't perceiving functions be more, not unconscious, but more passive in a way that they are not like actively. Well, I don't know how he sees this, but I would think that what NI does, it does without conscious effort, or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. How do you understand it?
The way I understand it is, I'll say first of all I'll say how I think INTPs do it. They will look at a subject consciously from a lot of different angles and then try to combine the angles. And Victor was looking at Linda Bones' website, and he says, yes, that's that holographic panoramic thinking style, this multi-angle thinking. I think Dario is saying that the NI type will do that unconsciously. They'll look at lots of stuff from maybe different angles, and then unconsciously then have an answer that pops into the mind that about it. So like yesterday or earlier today, I was sending you some vocal messages about Carl Jung on NI, and we decided, that's too complicated to talk about. We have to do that in future in a separate hangout. That he was talking about chain of associations in the unconscious, and that maybe with the NI is they get that realization that pops into their mind that's a synthesis. We can ask Jonathan, how does it work? Come on, tell us.
You lost the next tournament. No.
I did not. No, there was only one tournament. I won the Angry Birds tournament, and then I was doing a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, okay. So this is
I knew a tournament tomorrow.
What else? So how much did you win then for winning the tournament?
700 coins.
And is that? Can you spend them? Can you spend them?
I could spend them on Angry Birds.
Ooh.
Oh, marvelous!
Brilliant.
Someone's TE Polar.
I play Candy Crush when I'm bored.
I used to play anyway. Back on topic.
So yeah, I'd like to see that you compare it with that. Like, did you hear what I was saying, Jonathan? About
yes.
I think the synthesis works at an unconscious level, and for INTPs, it's more consciously.
It does and it doesn't. You can make a conscious effort to make it more synthesized. It's like, or to understand it better. I would say I automatically see or very quickly see what I think is the real possibility of where things are going, and all the other possibilities are sort of around me. Like they're there, but I'm not focusing them. I see the patterns as they are. So it's not necessarily that I'm seeing a bunch of different points of view and then seeing the actual right answer or anything. It's like I've already, through experience or intuition or whatever, I've already identified the correct pattern, so when I see it, I recognize it. So I don't need to go through all the different possibilities or anything. I can just, it's like it catches my eye immediately, because I'm used to identifying trends and correlation and so on.
Right, there's the thing. Do you think more your focus is more on trends than patterns?
Most difference.
Well, the difference is, to me, trend has a temporal aspect, where you're going, I have to see this going in a certain way, whereas patterns is not necessarily a temporal aspect to it.
Perhaps I would say both throughout. I would say the devil see patterns, but yes, I suppose you could put it that way if you
You know
want.
what I'm sort of saying is the NJ may look more towards a trend because their focus is seeing development and
Well,
change over time, whereas the NE
well,
type is
I
just
see
looking for
the
patterns.
I see the patterns in the trends. How about that?
Yeah, but do you sort of get my point though that when you value an NE is different from when you value an NI, that there's more of a focus on the trend going forward, and the
Right.
NE might look at. What do you think of that, Hannah? Or am I just
Oh
talking out of my
yeah.
elbow?
I'm trying to think it if I have some Finnish terms. How well does these English terms? I assume that trend usually relates to time
Yeah.
in English language. Does it?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, maybe I'm influenced too much my by Peter Schiff, but when I think of trends, I think of
Yeah,
Well,
like
yeah.
yeah.
charts, things going forward, the
Well, I see
temporal
that too, but
aspect.
I could see patterns having a temporal aspect as well. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking.
I think
Well,
it depends on the context because, well, Jonathan, you're a historian, and I have also studied history,
Sure.
history of ideas. And what I tended to do when I studied was I was looking for patterns or trends throughout different time periods in thinking. For example, in history of philosophy, I'm looking for patterns or trends in thinking. So
Well,
if the material I'm looking at is somehow historical or goes through certain time periods, then of course I'm looking for both.
I I would say that, but I'm not actually looking for them. I just see them.
maybe.
That's the difference.
Okay.
And it's especially not necessarily in just in history, especially in ideas and people. That's where I tend to see the patterns most, and it's not necessarily I'm looking for them. It's just I find them, and it can get a bit annoying at times. Sometimes I want something more fresh. But
So they just come up to your mind. Because I'm thinking, if I'm
yeah,
comparing to myself, I need to have a certain question in mind, and then I start to look for patterns. I have to have some kind of motivation. They don't just pop up in my mind. I usually relate. There's a certain like intention in, in looking for them. So that's why I would say that I look for them. I don't just see them. Yeah.
I would say I just see them, and if I'm look, I can actively look for them at times if I think it's relevant. But usually it's just an unconscious thing. But it's actively unconscious as well because you can. NI is passive. I heard you say that, but it's also active at times. You can be actively using it. You can make the effort to use it more.
Yeah, you can go into a state of using an eye. Yeah.
Right, I got some. So I've been a bit reductionist here, but I put all trends have patterns, but not all patterns have trends. So,
Yeah,
for instance, you can have trans-contextual patterns.
Mm.
Is that when you did, Hannah, like when you're comparing things across religions, that's not a temporal aspect. That's a
yeah, that's what so yeah, I totally agree. So it
I
depends
can
on.
do that too, also.
well, yeah, because yeah, keyword there. You can do it.
I would say I do
You
it.
choose not to do it as much as looking for the trend, for the
Again, it's not.
direction.
No, again, it's unconscious, so it's not. I can definitely identify patterns and
Oh, yeah,
similarities and differences in different religions and so on. Comparing religions just actually comes very, very naturally to me. I did it when I was younger, but it wasn't very difficult to see the patterns and trends even when I was really young. So
within the theory is that NI DOMs have the NE control function where they can do it, but they don't really value it. They don't have much energy for it. I think that means that you don't chase the possibilities the way an NE DOM does. They chase the possibilities.
I actually find it hard to chase
Um,
the possibilities, or even just it's like my mind can go blank at times when I'm thinking, trying to brainstorm or anything like that.
right. Okay. So I've got eye on the clock. So if we go with this bit, achieve a metamorphosis, definitive insight, or powerful vision of change. What about that one, Hannah?
Oh yes, you're still on page 72. I see.
Yes, we are still on page 72. to such an extent that when we finish that, we might switch over to perspective shifting, because we've not done that bit yet, and I actually find that bit very interesting.
Okay. I'll be back. I'll listen and I'll be back when you.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. Well, I don't know. This sounds too grandiose. Metamorphosis, vision of change, powerful vision of change. No, I can feel I have insights, but are they definitive? I don't think so. Like I said, I have new insights every day.
Exactly. That's more NE valuing.
So.
I mean, if that's not NE valuing, then what's the difference between NE and NI?
Yeah, I agree.
Then we've got. Then here we go. Transform your. I mean, and you probably see on my scan, on my photo, that I've underlined those bits to do with time and change.
Yeah.
I
have to say,
oh yes.
I have to say about these insights. Real evidence that I do change my. I have some friends, old friends that I've known ever since I was in high school, and it's a joke. It's a joke between us that every time we see like twice a year. I have some new system or some new, like obsession that I'm very enthusiastic to tell about it, and they just laugh it off because I've done it every time, and it's always something new. So I don't know if that's NE or NI, but that's what.
Oh, I think it's NE.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
It is a bit interesting bit. Transform yourself in a specific way by focusing inward on a way you foresee you'll need to be in the future.
Well, I transform myself in specific ways, but they change all the time. So it can last for 1 week or maybe for. But okay. But seriously though, if I think about my professional changes, I do try to. Yeah, I do try to change or transform myself. Thinking like what I need to be if I want to be a nurse or if I want to be a researcher. So then I try to strategize and think out what is good, how I should act, what kind of things I should do, and what are the best ways to do and what best things to do in order to be a good nurse, or how I can make my professional growth.
Did you say surgeon?
No. What did I? No.
I think you said.
I haven't been speaking English for ages, so that's why my English is. If my English is bad, it's because I haven't.
It's once in a blue moon, Hannah, that your English is less than perfect. Once in a blue moon, and in fact, mine is probably more imperfect than yours. But when you're saying there, the interaction of these three functions here, when you're saying that, you're thinking about career. And like I said, you've got your combination with career of you've got the money aspect, the TE, the practical aspect, with the aspects of caring for people. And then you're going to be using this creatively to achieve that.
Yeah.
Like this thing that you do not value, NI, that you're going to be using it to achieve this goal, where you can we get these two things by going into nursing, where you get a practical career and you get to care for people. And not only that, is that you've got this launcher function here as well, the SI, was it SI minus, I think, which is about being stimulated by seeing distress in people, in the humanist.
Oh yeah, that fits like completely. I have proof after my 4 weeks that I definitely get stimulated by seeing people in distress.
Whereas me, it's like, so I did ask Victor, so do LII like to sit outside on a sunny day and have a read, and he said, oh yes. I can't remember if he did, but I think he put oh yes. I don't might be embroidering the story, I'm not sure.
Good for you then.
Okay, so what we'll do now is, because I do not want to miss this bit out, is we're going to skip forward. Utilitarian, breaking the rules. We're going to skip forward to page 77 because I'd like to look at this perspective shifting stuff.
Do you
Because
have
this
it?
isn't.
Do I have it in your?
Oh yes, yeah, you have it in my scans.
Okay, so what does it look like?
It's page 77. It will be 1, 2, 3, the fourth scan.
Perspective shifting. Yes.
I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have put a flipping smiley face next to influence someone. People might get the wrong impression.
Such as?
Well, he wrote it though. I mean, Dario's writing it. Oh, you can use this to influence someone with NI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because because I don't necessarily agree with Dario's definition of NI when he starts talking about a meta perspective, but this stuff on the perspective shifting is interesting. Right. That's a big right. So yeah, so this is the idea here is so lots of advice, folks. I'll just read this little bit.
Can I ask something? This you're NI.
Yes.
Do you feel attracted to other people's NI? Like, do you try to actively engage other people's NI?
What do you mean exactly?
Well, I mean, well, for example, here when this is communicating to build rapport. So, do you actively seek to engage, or
You mean to try and get other people to see different perspectives and different points of view?
Yeah, and are you interested in seeing other people's point of view?
I find it very, very easy to see other people's points of view, or at least to speculate on it and imagine what it's like. Usually I'm taking how they seem to be reacting, how they seem to feel about certain things, how I anticipate they're going to feel, and so on, and using that to work out how they likely see the world based on all the stuff I know about them and all the stuff I know about other people. So I don't find it difficult to see that. I do try and actively engage their NI more by perhaps introducing them to a different point of view or asking them to consider someone else's perspective or another perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't always work, and a lot of the time is not necessarily welcome. Like if they're feeling very emotional about something or passionate, however, they might not like that. And also, it's harder to do that with some people than others, and you have to phrase it a certain way, and it's very difficult to get my own ideas out as well, to explain what I'm trying to say to them in the first place. So, but yeah, I do try and I would say yes, I do like to engage with someone else's NI.
So how
that's probably NIFE as well.
Yeah, because FE makes it. Yeah, that's true.
How you've studied? I think you mentioned in other hangouts. You've studied manners. What have you learnt from that in terms of like people skills?
Well, a lot. Well, I studied. Well, I mean, not studied like properly, but I've read. I used to buy these books. This called Culture Shock about different countries and their manners and etiquettes in different. Well, if you go to a different country, what kind of common manners there are for etiquettes. And then I studied. I have studied etiquettes. Well, basically in Western cultures and in Finnish culture throughout the different times. So I have learned about, well, mostly like in recent history, like in the 20th century. I don't know, just to understand, to make it easier to be in certain contexts. And what it has made me realize is, of course, that how well other people are aware of their own behavior or their own manners. And when I was a teenager and in my 20s, then I was really like obsessive about these manners and would feel very ashamed if I didn't behave well or if someone in my family didn't behave like I thought was proper. So I was very sensitive to those, and quite strict also with those.
Is it, Jonathan? Is that an E6 then? Is Hanna a social? Hanna, are you a social instinct?
Well, I don't. I suppose I'm not. I thought I'm SXSP, but who knows? Maybe
I think we could do that in another hangout, perhaps.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was just sort of thinking there. I was just wondering if the reason why Hanna looked at the matters was an Enneagram thing.
It may or may not be. I mean, I have actually seen on social media a lot of people I think are type 6 NFPs who do seem quite concerned with manners and how other people act and all that. I could see it being an FITE thing. Like they have this idea that, well, on the one hand they want to be true to their feelings and their own and how they feel and their own principles, but they also want to respect other people's views and principles, and so having manners and having rules and stuff might be sort of a compromise, a middle ground where because otherwise inevitably they might just clash. If they have this etiquette arranged where they know where the line is, and everyone knows where the line is, and it may be easier for them to do that without getting into too much trouble.
Yeah, I think there were two motivations. Like, of course, the first one is to build easier rapport with other people. So it's easier to communicate when you know you're communicating. But then also it has to do with social anxiety. Just to feel more at ease in social situations. I've never been shy in a strict sense, but I'm very sensitive to in social situations, like reading. I have my antennas up and I'm reading the atmosphere. So it can make me easier. It can make me feel easier to be in a social situation if I have these certain morals or rules according to which I know how to behave.
So it again. This might be where FI is a little bit of both. Where as the way Dario defines it in the West, you've got staying true to yourself. And as you know, Socionics defines it as ethics of relations, where that is a little bit a part of that.
Yeah. Well, this is one reason why this tendency of mine for proper behavior in certain situations, especially, and if I emphasize it, has probably been one reason why people have seen me as ESI, like FISE, because ESI is the guardian, the one who is very aware of the distance between people and can manage that well.
I think that's the Socionics. I think that the mechanism for the Socionics FI is this subjective feeling of what is and is not appropriate based on how they subjectively feel towards everything and everyone. And so that would match Western FI, but the practical effect of that is by following these things that affect your relations. And so the two meld together.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you then look where these things are absent, like this, how you feel towards different, like for instance, or in other words, when people have poor FI, the behavior then becomes the FI break behavior where people act inappropriately in their relations. So you can see how the concepts of FI and R, of introverted feeling and ethics of relations, overlap.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what annoys me in FI. I think it is the what I interpret as some kind of lack of care of other people's feelings, or it's certain
Insensitive.
Yeah, it's just insensitivity that
Is
really
that
hits me
is
hard.
that what it said before? The opposite of feeling is not thinking. It's insensitivity. It's sensitive versus insensitive.
Yeah, and it's one of the most difficult things for me to accept. Is indifference and insensitivity. It's really hard. Yeah.
You know,
So I
because
think so my motivation for for behaving well and having these manners is that that I care for. It's important for me to be a decent person,
yeah.
and to have respect for
But
other people.
if 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 TI really was the opposite of FI, then surely the INTP would be more disagreeable than the ENTP because they're TI lead. But it's those two functions are not the polar opposites the way, like, say, NE and SE are. So I get it. It's sensitive versus insensitive.
I think the main thing with FI and TI is that part of the job of TI is to critique the emotions and to try and impose logic on themselves and the emotions, and that's where that can come in. So,
I do that all the flipping while, especially on Facebook. And I asked Jonathan this. Now Facebook has this little habit of saying that a message has been read when it hasn't been read. Because I looked back, because I sent Jonathan a message, and then it said singing at 2:40 in the morning, and I'm like, well, Jonathan was asleep then. And so I asked Jonathan, no, I never saw it at that time.
I saw it sent at 2:40 in the morning.
Yeah,
I thought you were. Was it sent at 2:40 in the morning?
You see, that's the thing. That's how you know, folks. A little Facebook tip there. If you send a message and you know it wasn't seen, and then the next day it says seen at the same time you sent it, then you know that that's a glitch in the program. And when you're an NT thinking, well, I can't see the face, I can't see anything, I'm trying to work out what the appropriate interaction with this person is. The only data I have very limited data. I have whether they're seeing a message or not, and the activity on Facebook.
They also think that I mean, for INFPs, the role function is TI, isn't it?
Yes.
And for INTPs, the role function is FI.
Yes.
Maybe that's why they clash West versus the others.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's it's the overall temperament, the introverted judging.
Yeah.
So it's not, where you're doing both.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily that TI is not the opposite of FI or anything. It's more that the role functions vary. So.
I mean, as you know, from both of you, from a philosophical point of view, it's ludicrous to assume that these things have to be total opposites. Because it's just a neat way to divide things up. And it's like when we talked about SE and SI, as defined by Dario, they are total opposites, because if you're improvising, you cannot be following the book at the same time. One is following the instructions, the other one is improvising. And you can alternate in between, but you can't do the two things are opposed. And that is why you'll have such big clashes between SPs and SJs.
Well, yeah, but then the opposite with FI would be FE in your analogy. Not TI, FE. If it's... Say there's a clash between SPs and SJs over SI and SE, then the opposite of FI would be FE. And you can't really do them at the same time, being true to your value, focusing on your emotions and being focused on...
But remember there what I said there on the board, that the practical effect of FI is that you then use that to know what's appropriate in relationships, because it's the practical effect is you know how you feel towards everything and everyone, and you interact with people based off that. And generally, if you look at the behaviour of the FI people, they tend to not get people's backs up as much. Even though if you were just to look at the definition of the function, if you were of FI and you were to predict based on that, if you were given the definition of FI as staying true to yourself, then you would think that person must really annoy everybody else. But that's not necessarily the case.
What?
No. But if you block it with SE, then maybe it's different than if you block it with NE.
I would still say that's more FI in conjunction with other functions rather than
That's
FI.
what I mean.
I think FI by itself really is as opposed to FE by itself. I think if someone really is just staying true to themselves and their own values and throwing all the other functions in the fire, if they are just concerned with their own feelings and not at all concerned with anyone else's feelings, then no. But they come to FI types realize they need to care for other people's feelings through learning about through developing their FE or developing their intuition, for example, and
Oh,
so on.
yeah. We did an interesting hangout with Kristin, who's ISFP, FISX, and we talked about how like the spontaneous generosity, the kindness, but then also that she will judge people.
Hmm.
So that would be a good hangout with you, Hannah. So I'd like to compare you with Kristin. So FINX versus FISX.
Yeah, especially because I've been typed as FISE by many people. So maybe I am FISE. Who knows? I'm very good at managing the distance.
I think there's a few differences between her and you. So.
You think so?
Yes, I can see the differences.
Do you still think? Do you still think I'm INFP?
Yeah, INFP seems like the most likely thing in my point of view.
Yeah. So we're going through it. I mean, like you value NE. You know,
And FI. And FI.
I can't remember a hangout where Hannah's said, "Ben, get back on track." But you have said, "Ben, we've got 20 minutes left."
No, that's fair.
But yeah, so we've got this communicating to build rapport. So French word, rapport. So interestingly, there's a video by. Have you ever seen Ruby Wax, Hannah?
No.
Okay, she used to do these fantastic interviews with Hollywood stars where she would like befriend them for a week, and she would get so much out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Except in the case of Madonna, and then she did a talk in 2009 where she talked about how she was able to achieve rapport and then not achieve rapport, and she said that she achieved rapport with Imelda Marcos by treating her like an 8-year-old child, and she got Imelda to show her the collection of shoes. But then when she did with Madonna, and then looking at it through the lens of typology, well, I think Ruby Wax is an ENFP and Madonna's probably an ESTP. You see the clash of the quadras, and she was talking about how she failed to get rapport with Madonna, and so yeah, she studied psychology, Ruby Wax, and she also did something that I thought was fantastic, a very good idea in my opinion for an interview show. Is she had guests around a dinner table. So I have a dinner party atmosphere. You get your celebrities to drink.
Ah, yeah.
Now loosen their tongues. They forget they're on TV. I thought that was very effective. So yeah, page 77. Communicating to build rapport.
I think what Dario was talking about here is NIFE more than NITE.
Yeah.
Overall, gauging how the other person feels about this meta perspective. So on.
Well, these are NLP techniques. These are the things that Dario has learned from NLP. I mean, it's like I said, it's quite mechanical. It's like, I mean, it can be. I mean, the INTJs that would be doing NLP badly. They would be like copying the other person's body language exactly, and then the other person will go. They'll catch on to what they're doing, but then like subtler things like matching the other person's tone of voice, and then things like here, use the tones these are the things INTJs need to be taught through a system. That's like when we did the inside the head of the INTJ. It was something like scientific system for interacting with people. And I was like that as an NT. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Use their terms, match tone of voice. But you're probably thinking, Ben, this is obvious.
Yes, I am.
So then, does anything jump out to you, Hannah, in those 2 bullet points under communicating to build rapport?
Well, I can do it if I pay attention to it. Like it's I realize that I'm sort of taking a certain kind of role if I start asking these sort of questions. I know that I'm fairly good at. Well, this is not what I'm thinking this is what I've heard as a feedback. For instance, now just that I had this clinical practice and I had my supervisor's evaluation of me, and he said that I easily build rapport with people. I'm warm and engaging, and I'm natural in communicating with other people, both with the people living there and with their close ones or loved ones. So I think I do this, but it's more. I don't know. I think it's in a way more conscious.
Yeah, it occurs to me though that if you're an INFP, this chapter is probably intended for you, because Dario does think that INFPs need to develop their NI. He says that earlier in the book. This chapter is not really for me. It's not really for INFPs.
But it's interesting because if I'm INFP, then I should have 4D NI. In a similar way.
But it would be unconscious.
I asked Victor about this. He doesn't do all those dimensions. That's Bukalov. It's not something that's part of Model G.
Yeah.
The dimensions.
Well, if you're INFP, you would be doing this, but it would be unconscious, and you wouldn't necessarily be natural for you. It'd be like with me at FI. It's like normally I'm not really that aware of my feelings, or it's still difficult for me to decode them at times, but they're still quite strong. You can feel that.
There's a bit in this book about preference versus skill, and I think that people studying Enneagram, they will increase their skill at FI related things because they're going to be examining their own feelings and things. Feelings,
yes,
motivations.
Yes, and I don't like it. But I do it.
Yeah. I think that's the same. I think I have skills in this.
Yeah.
I need to. If I have his preference, there's usually another kind of motivation.
Yeah.
It's more.
Oh, there might be a slight overlap as well. That although Jonathan has said any type can be Enneagram Type 6. There might be a slight overlap with doubt and NI with the E6. With NI, I'm not sure.
I've heard that some Enneagram folks, they say that FI is very Enneagram 6.
Yes.
I sort of go with that as well.
I've heard that too, but at the same time, it's also the one that almost any type.
Yeah, Enneagram 6 is. It's
not like an ENTP who's a type 4 or type 1 or anything. It's anything can be a 6. A lot of that's because type 6 is the most about fear, and fear's universal.
So it might just be that anyone who's insecure gets typed as an Enneagram Type 6.
Oh yeah.
No, because you can definitely see it, even if some combinations are definitely more likely and more common than others, but you can definitely see, even if you pay attention, that they are a 6. You can see this thing going on.
I think many sixes have some kind of traumatic background.
Yeah, no, I think it's more like they're born with anxiety, with an anxious temperament, and they can be very sensitive to their environment and stuff. Obviously, many of them all go through something actually traumatic, but all of them might also be more easily traumatized by things that another type might.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah. That's another thing to consider in general with type and with psychology, that one person might deal with very easy, another person might find very devastating or
Yeah.
Ben, you were saying?
Well, some of the advice that Dario gives, it's like it's a little bit you might be watching this, so it's a little bit INTJ-ish. where if you would say to someone, I mean, the language where you would say, you've seen what it's like, where it's like an INFP wouldn't talk like this if they're counselling someone. They wouldn't use these jargony type, the way. And basically, this has been NTized. The NT, but we not people like look at you funny and go, "What?"
Yeah. I mean, for me, I just I do this unconsciously. I can usually work out myself, or maybe I'll ask questions to get some more information, but I can usually work it out without asking or interrogating them. So,
because when he puts how they feel about this meta perspective, well, what he should have put there is, and then give an example of the sort of thing to say. Because the NLP books do that. They'll say the sort of things. You can't just say to someone, how do you feel about that meta perspective? It's great if you're talking to someone who's studied philosophy, but a normal person, you're not going to gain rapport by using this kind of language.
He probably doesn't mean it literally.
Yeah, no, but if you give an example of the kind of question you can ask, because I've got like other NLP books that do ask, that give examples like that. So it'll give the example of if somebody says something like, "My independence is very important to me," and if you want them to be more concrete, you can say something like, just simple like, "What about your independence is most important to you?" Because then just by saying what is you're asking them to be more concrete. So, or little bits of advice where you'll have stuff on the, there's a thing called the meta model where it looks at language, where it's basically asking people to be more concrete and things to look for when they've missed out how something was done, who did it, what it's better than, all these little errors in speech, something like complex equivalence, which I think is saying something is like something else when it's not like that. When the people go, "Oh, that's like Hitler," that is. No, it's not. And so there's all these little. Something fell off. It was just something that's in front of the fan. It fell off. No worries. But yeah, so I'll some examples there from Dario that might help. But because sometimes it is a bit. You have to. I mean, that's all right if you're talking to an intuiting type. But if you're talking to a sensing type,
honestly,
these books give you questions to things. And it boils down to asking the other person to be more concrete. Just to give more concrete examples. And that can get... So if you think somebody has got cloudy thinking, ask them to give concrete examples. What, how, when. All the things that journalists are taught to do. What, how, when, all these sort of things. That would clarify someone's speech without directly challenging someone.
I'm bad at giving examples, though. I must explain my thoughts to others.
I mean, you must have encountered other intuiting types who are too abstract. They never give concrete examples of what they mean. And you're probably secretly thinking, you've not really thought this through, because you can't give me a concrete example.
Actually, I wonder if I'm like that.
No, but you do give concrete examples, though, because in the Hangouts, I'll say, okay, what does that look like? What does this like?
Yeah, but I'm just making it up as I go along. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what comes out of his mouth. I'm panicking. I'm putting the spot. I'm going, bullshit. I go,
But at least you're making an effort.
Oh, yeah. But inside I'm screaming, panicking. Anyway.
So Hannah, how would you? Because you were saying that there's preference and skill. You'll have improved these skills just through interacting. Just on your nursing course, you think you're a more skilled person in that area, or slightly more skilled than you were, say, 6 months ago.
Yeah, and actually, this is what we are learning quite a bit, because we have to use motivational talk with our patients, and we really need to find their perspective and their meta perspective and their how we can motivate them into changing their habits, and you can never use force. You have to find their own will, and that you just have to use these sort of methods.
Oh, I just remembered this bit here. I've just lost the context. The context is, I forgot that this is perspective for people are using introverted intuition. I was saying there, why would you ask this for sensing type? So if you're doing with a real weird NFJ, maybe this will work. But even then, tell me about your symbols, archetypes, and maybe. I forgot the context. I just thought this was advice for Jim, but I completely lost the context that was in. But it's still a bit. Right. Okay.
Oh, this is for someone talking to me.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if someone did ask you these sort of questions, would you be happy with it like that, or would you think
that's a little weird, yeah. Okay, why don't you try it? Why don't you ask me this various perspective we might take. Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It needs to put, I said, these other books, like NLP in 5 minutes, it will give you examples of questions to ask in English.
Yeah.
Rather than, there's enough page. The next page has some blank on it. It could have fit some examples in there.
Jonathan, do you get annoyed if people ask you to define what you mean or to give examples? Is it annoying?
I'd probably get annoyed myself more than anything else, because I would actually try and do it, and I would have trouble doing it, trouble putting it towards sometimes. I get very proud of myself when I actually do manage to say what I'm thinking, say what's on my mind. So it doesn't actually happen a lot that people ask that anyway. So.
Because I'm trying to compare to myself. I don't know. I think it's quite obvious, also in these videos, that I sort of come up with some concrete examples all the time. Like I'm trying to think, when I was having this, and then when I was having this, it's sort of like a fun game to me to think about this.
Yeah. Plus, I always ask for
them. Yeah. It's not always easy, but I enjoy.
Yeah.
Thinking.
Oh yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. That initially you think, and then you yeah. Because me, I like to compare the theory to reality. Does it stack up to reality?
Yeah, I like to search for evidence.
Yeah.
I think giving concrete examples sounds very SI and very TE. So.
Yeah, it could be, and I think it's very empiricist. It's my empiricist situation that I.
Yeah, it's like you've got to do that, else you can have weird quadra values where you end up with these weird things where you can end up with an if you wrote an ESFP profile based on the definitions that Socionics uses of the functions, you can get something that's very different from the type in real life.
Well, as far as giving descriptions of personality types, though, giving concrete examples, I find a lot of them is a bit misleading, because there will always be exceptions to your description. A lot of your descriptions are usually things like what jobs they're likely to have, or what things they like to do.
Well, yeah, it's statistical.
Yeah.
If you have enough of a sample size.
But still, INFJ descriptions will say that I'm supposed to be leading a new religious movement or something, and maybe I still will. I don't know.
There's obviously bad examples, but but that's why Kersey and Inderbaum's even changed the name from temperament to essential motivator pattern. And Jeff has done a video, preference versus reality, about how the fact someone's circumstances can change how the ESFP's preferences are acted out. Like, he doesn't like the taste of alcohol. He had a young baby to look after, so someone's circumstances change how you express your type. But he said everything that had to do with the ESFP's motivations, all of that matched in 100%. But the behaviours didn't necessarily match because of circumstances.
Oh yeah.
So, okay, if we've got influencing for best use, so the best way to influence someone like Jonathan, and then see if this, and see how Hannah thinks about this. I mean, what kind of question is that? How well does this meta perspective explain life? Ask the other person about a perspective or she has had that he or she doesn't understand yet. What? What? Give us an example, Dario, please. What does that, Jonathan? Can you intuit what that means? Can you give me an example of that?
Ask the other person about the perspective I have had. If I don't understand it, it's a little difficult to explain it though. So, I can sort of imagine the gist of what he's meaning, but still, but again, it's hard for examples to come to mind.
See, like I said, you could tell that FE is not his strongest function. But when it's the other chapters are extremely good in this area of like talking to people. So this is what I mean. Is like this is an NLP type of thing where it can get a bit mechanical, where it's like someone's following a scientific system for interacting with people.
Ask how much this person has been able to go into a meditative mode and what mind shifting he or she might have left out or would like to engage in again. What mind shifting? I mean, I suppose depending on how you... I wouldn't say go into meditative mode that much, but as I define meditation, that would be more like clearing your mind completely. Whereas I tend to get lost in a thoughts process or drift away like a dream.
Right. Okay. What I'll do is I'll ask Hannah about that last bit, helping to discover new outcomes, and then we'll do that, and then I'll just quickly go over the definition, and then we can end. Because Hannah has some sleep to do.
Yeah.
So there's helping to discover new outcomes.
Well, I can see this.
What?
I can see this would work in therapy setting if you need, because because sometimes people who come into therapy, they can feel completely hopeless about future. They don't see any alternatives, any options, any good outcome in their situation. So if the therapist is an INFJ, and if they can give some examples of how others who have been in a similar situation have, maybe it can be inspiring. I don't know.
It's like when you ask the other person whether this meta perspective brings a new way of being. I think Dario should give an example there, because obviously in real life you're not going to say meta perspective.
Yeah, I would be curious to see to understand what this meta perspective, what it means. What does he mean with it?
Because I don't necessarily believe in that definition of NI, because I think other functions are involved in meta perspective. It's just that what's happening is that people's bias comes out with their valued functions as they tend to attribute things to the functions that they favour when it's their main thing. So, for instance, when I see meta perspective, I go, "Oh, that's a TI thing." When Dario says, "Oh, that's an NI thing," but you see, what it might be is NITX is using TI creatively, and so the two things are melded together.
Well, but I think it's just both. You need it's sort of a reflective quality. If you think about this, how do you call it? I've forgotten all I've studied before. This dual process theory of mind, that we have the intuitive and reflective mind. Then I think this meta perspective has to do with reflective mind. So that
a meta perspective is an abstract term to describe a usually collective view of creation. Meta perspectives may be distinguished from individual perspectives by the fact that a meta perspective may be, and usually is, adopted by more than one person. So a lot of this might be cultural viewpoints or religious viewpoints or like viewpoints that many people share. So that's
right. If we go to
universal ideas.
We've got about 3 minutes left. If we go to page 74, I'll just read out the first sentence. At the core of introverted intuiting is a meta perspective, a way of seeing things that transcends competing views.
Yeah, I can do that.
When we, I'll read off of it. When we go into a trance-like meditative mode, we withdraw from the world to get an insight or realization. But what I think's happening is that in Victor's system, NITX, INTJ is using NI with TI, and it's very hard to see the TI. And I think the way Dario's defined NI here with meta perspective, I think TI is going on in that function at the same time. I describe it as the fish that doesn't know when it's wet. Because it's like, I don't know when I'm using NI. Because they'll say, oh, it's about cause and effect, and seeing the trends. And I'll say, yes, that's logic, cause and effect. And I said, and I asked Victor about it, and he said, it's very hard for the INTP to see the NI because it is exactly that, because it's bound up so much with the lead function.
I would say logic is. I would say TI is more about calculating cause and effect or reducing cause and effect, whereas NI is just seeing it.
Yeah.
Seeing it in motion. You know, like you're not meditating with too much. I can relate to that definition of meta perspective in the book. That I can take a step back and just see the overlying themes and the underlying themes that transcend different viewpoints and what everyone's trying to say and so on. It's very difficult to get them to see it or to care, or people involved in this, but it's not that difficult for me to do that. It really is just taking a step back and looking at the big picture in a lot of ways.
Right, okay.
People will have different ideas of what I mean by the big picture, I think.
Right, we've got about, if we give Hannah 1 minute to, if you've got possible misuses at the bottom of page 75, and if you could quickly go through those bullet points and let me know what you think of the possible misuses.
We can't stop thinking, relax. We experience a high focus while mulling. That sounds a bit weird. Because I think it should be quite relaxing to be. I think it should be more like it's not thinking. It's a lack of reflective thinking more if you get stuck in NI. So there are those gurus sitting in a cave meditating, and those it's
at the start of the chapter.
No, we're at page 75, and now when it says here, keep envisioning a specific fantastical image, whereas I think Hannah was saying that, she goes between lots of different ones, which might be an NE thing.
Yeah.
Because both, I remember talking this with Anthony, I got the notion that SE is about being focused in the context, when the context is stimulating, of course. Because SPs are unfocused until they are stimulated. Then once they are stimulated, they're the most focused of all types. And then NI is an internal focus. So that's how the functions can line up.
See, I can relate to that. Can't stop thinking to relax. It's like when if I'm lying awake at night, I'm trying to get sleep, but there's so many. I keep thinking about stuff or getting lost in thoughts. Maybe it's not necessarily actively thinking, it's more like you're lost in thought. The thought is taking you're taken away by the thought, you're taken away by your imagination. Metaphorically, I'm not sitting there and calculating stuff or working things out necessarily, just
I remember, have you seen the Michael Pierce's new video, the INFP video? There is a very good explanation of the difference between NI lead and FI lead. And I think he captured the dangers of NI pretty well in saying that they sort of refuse to take empirical evidence into account if they are too stuck in their subjective worldview. And I think the last point is follow a system for thinking that is perceived by others as strange or inscrutable. This can be so these people who, like someone in, I could imagine someone in this, what is this, Scientology or something. You know, these
Yeah.
cults. You know, these people who are into cults, and so they sort of refuse to think empirical, take evidence into account or change their views.
I think everyone's like that in certain ways, though, and it's more a case of it's not just refusing to take empirical evidence to account. Refusing to take empirical evidence to account that contradicts your view. You can take empirical evidence to account that agrees with you and that supports your view. With NI, is more of a specific type of refusal.
Yes, but yeah.
FI doesn't. Even extroverted thinking types do that as well. They can also.
Yeah, and I would say that as an well, I'd relate to FI no matter what, and I know that I can be really stuck with my emotions. I have some situations in my life at the moment that I completely refuse or feel unable to overcome some of my negative emotions and my emotional perspectives. So that's what I tried to explain before, that I can realize, rationally speaking, that I'm too black and white, but I still cannot give up them. So that's my too strong FI, or
with me is more like
FI.
With me is more like I'm aware that evidence that contradicts my viewpoint exists and all that, but it just seems like my viewpoint is evidence. It's like I'm seeing evidence that no one else can see, and it's difficult to explain. I just want, because I'm taking a long-term view, I'm thinking eventually this will be proven one way or the other.
Okay. But that's what I don't understand about NI, is that how can you ever believe that your intuition would be correct?
Because it very often is. It very often is.
But that's the bias. That's the bias.
That's the thing. And when I asked Jonathan, "How do you know?" he says, "I just know."
Yeah, that's like horrible. You cannot say to anyone.
No, I mean, it's more like it's there's a consistency to. There is times either it's wrong or it's not wrong, but I've interpreted it wrong or whatever. There's a lot of times I've went against my intuition, and it turns out I should have went on with it in the first place. I tend to think of intuition more of a suggestion rather than an order, but there can be a bit of an excitement when you get an insight. But again, it's more like from experience, I will know that my intuition has proved itself again in the end, more or less consistently. So I'm quite to trust it, and learning about the functions of Myers-Briggs and this intuition is real. That is actually something I do experience. That is not a delusion in my head. That's quite relieving.
Right, so we've got two bullet points left on that page. What do you think about those 2 bullet points, Hannah? And then I'll just say a little bit about the first sentence on page 73.
I think we talked about all these bullet points in a way.
The ones overly focused on self-development, and that last.
Sorry, is it another page? Wow.
Yeah, page 76. There's 2 more bullet points.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. Yeah. I have to find it. Overly focused on self-development. Oh yeah.
I'm looking at the clock, you see, Jonathan, because it's 11:36 in Finland. So, and then the last thing, because I skipped over the bit about the definition. Do you want to say anything about those 2 bullet points, Hanna?
Well, I can say that we talked about this be so focused on innovating or doing something in a novel way that we don't realize that we're reinventing the wheel. So this is what I said in the very beginning of this hangout, was that's why I don't value innovative thinking as much, because I think, well, I've studied enough to know that there are not many good new things in the world.
I think that's an intuitive dominant thing, not just INJs, but ENPs as well. Like that, more like the new and the diverse thing and so on. With me, I keep on falling into the familiar, and I'd like to do something different or new or fairly new, but I kind of know Probably turn it isn't really as new as it seems.
Well, well, talking about that, you could read the first act of my stage play. Hannah had a different, will probably have a different reaction to you. She found it quite triggering. Ooh,
Yes.
that was different reasons. Oh yeah, so this bit here, I'll just read this bit out. The top of page 73. I think Dario is a little bit. He's bigging up this function when he says, at the core of introverted intuiting is a meta perspective, the highest level or the most flexible flame. Oh, I'll say it again. The highest level or the most flexible frame of mind or form of behavior that each of us currently has access to. So it's basically saying that NI is the best
Whoa.
function.
Oh Lord, that's.
What?
I don't agree.
Honestly, did you think is my interpretation? Do you agree with my interpretation there, Hannah? That Dario is really, really bigging up NI as the best function there.
Well, I think he's saying that meta perspective is the best, and that NI is the means to a meta perspective.
I do agree. Reading about this, how it feels to be in that light blue state, in this NI state, in this flow state, that it can be. It is a happy feeling. I mean, it is a satisfying state of mind or state of brain. But if it's best, I don't know.
And then we can evoke our perspectives by focusing on symbols, archetypes, and totems. What?
Totems.
I mean, like, so the method of reaching this fantastic meta perspective is to, like, stare at a symbol, and that's better than TI.
Yes.
Oh, that's better than FI? Like, come on. Yeah,
But like I said, you get to the conclusion that maybe, Hannah, you're not really an NI dom here. You're probably not an NI ego type.
I don't think so. I
You two are just jealous.
But Maria did say, she actually said that she said something like you get SI through SE, and she said it's opposite for NE, and she says that NE is actually actualized NI. So it's a useful NI. It comes out in the NE.
She never said useful, she said actualized.
Ah, then fair enough. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we've got to let Hannah because we don't want any marital discord.
Oh, so I can then you for
Yes, that's the problem. I don't want it to end up being an excuse.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, I really have to go, but I have
right. So yeah, in future we'll try to do some of the exercises. Yeah. We can we'll focus. We can do 3 hangouts on the exercises. So, because you could both look at them and actually try out these exercises because you're both a couple of NFs, so you won't mind doing it anyway. Mm-hmm. Whereas for me, it's just a bit, oh gosh.
We'll see. Yeah. But yeah, it was fun. This was fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can sign off for people. So it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.